Now, last time we discussed multiple motives for wanting to increase our income, but also at the same time control our expenses. And we also mentioned that prior to being able to build up any significant asset base anyway, our income is our sole source of financial power and security. So, without balancing our income relative to our expenses, we would never really be able to acquire any meaningful assets in the first place. And so increasing our income is an important subject in our discussion here on how to mature, how to develop financially so that we're secure in that way. See, now, how can we do that? How can we increase our income? Is there a surefire way to do that? It's a good question. And the answer, encouragingly, is yes, there is a way to do that. But first, we need to establish where to locate better wages for ourselves. And what I mean by that is we should start by questioning ourselves, looking at ourselves. What are we worth in in the business world? I mean, a cook is worth more than a dishwasher, right? I mean, that's obvious. And a captain is worth more than a deckhand. It's obvious. So as we look at ourselves in our industry, whatever industry you are in, increased income can come just simply from moving up the food chain. See? Now, how can you do that? How can you move up the food chain? Well, first of all, you need to look at where advancement in your current industry would take you, because if it doesn't look too good to you, then you should probably think about switching industries prior to spending much time climbing a ladder, because if you get to a place that you don't really want to be, then you've wasted a lot of effort. And it would be a shame to see you jump from there because you hated your life, right? Now, there are many trade schools all over across the country, and there's a lot of social programs that help with with worker retraining. And some industries are more lucrative in compensation than others are, and many of these have reasonable educational requirements to them, but also many lucrative trades. They have a kind of a big learning curve when it comes to the educational aspect of them. So either way, the point is to get into something that you can live with and then apply yourself to advancement. Apply yourself to advancement. I mean, actually, no matter what situation we're in, we should always be in a continual habit of trying to advance, or applying ourselves in that way. And so that's good advice, but when it comes down to the practice of it, how do we really apply ourselves to advancement? I mean, is there some practicable, easy way that we can do that? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, desire. Desire is the place to start if you really want to advance. But how do you make real measurable progress towards real advancement when it comes to our career? Well, there's a simple, easy answer to that question, easy to apply. It's 3 words: read and practice. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's really just comes down to that. So it's pretty much all you have to do, and if you do that, advancement will come pretty much naturally to you. It'll just come to you. And now, as you do research, it's not an overnight thing. I mean, you have to apply yourself, right, over time. But as you do your research, don't read too long before you actually go out and begin to get, to get your hands dirty. But when you go out and practice, though, don't practice too long until you come back and read a little bit more. And if you do that, if you move back and forth like that, a little shot at a time, you cannot help but advance. And now there's something interesting I want you to consider about the practice, actually practicing things. Because when you practice, you're going to find yourself in a very fertile position just to simply step up to an action, to actually earning money as you practice. Put yourself in the environment of practicing, and the situation is going to come along naturally that you're going to get a job, actually an advanced job, advanced from where you are, doing what you've chosen to do. So take an interest in your profession, and when you do advance, don't stop. Don't stop applying yourself. Continue to read, continue to practice at a higher level than where you're getting paid, and you will naturally continue to move higher up the food chain, right, up the ladder, until you get to where you want to be. Now that's a simple secret to increasing your earning power, increasing your income. And it sounds simple? Well, it is simple. Just do that. Okay, so now we've talked about income, and now let's talk about controlling our expenses, because basically what we need to do is to keep track of what we spend. We have to keep track of it before we can get any control over it. See, that's the trick there. Now the control, that's self-control, that's self-discipline, and that's something that really, you know, if you don't have a daddy there to spank you anymore, you're going to have to apply that to yourself. But before applying self-discipline can even help you, we really just have to be able to know what we're spending. Okay, so now that can be a little bit tricky in the modern world. I mean, there used to be, you used to just pay cash for things. Or then you had a checkbook, cash in a checkbook. But now we have credit cards, we have debit cards, we have cash, we have checkbooks. We usually have more than one credit card too, and it can get messy. And if you depend on your credit card statements or your debit card statements to really tell you what you spent, you know, they don't have enough information on them to really do you much good, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to identify not only what you spent, but where you spent it. So you need enough detail about the transaction to be able to categorize it into this, you know, like food and clothing and entertainment and utilities. And I mean, you need to be able to categorize it. And you'd be surprised if you do keep track how many transactions you actually make in a month. Now the other problem, complexity-wise, as far as keeping track of things, is a lot of times in a family, it's not only you that are spending the money. I mean, you probably have somebody else that's spending money out of that same pool. And so both parties, or all parties I should say, have to be able to keep track. Now, the only real practical way of doing that, unfortunately, is to take a moment every time you spend money and write it down. And write it down in a place that you're going to, you know, that you're not going to lose it or whatever. And then at the end of the month, you have to sit down with whoever you're with and put that in your category so that you see what you've been spending. Then you can see where you can trim it, or where you need to increase it, or how you can manage it. Anyway, related to your income. Now, what my wife and I use are these little, here, I think I've got one right here, these little Bank of America card ledgers. Here, I've got one right in my wallet. See that? See this thing? It fits right in there, and it's got all these little entry spots on there, to where you can, you know, you can actually fit it in your wallet, you and your wife or whoever, your significant other, and you can both keep track of them. See? Like I say, Bank of America puts those out. They're free. You can get my pockets full of them for nothing. Just going to grab them for you. Okay, so you see, this is what we have to do, and to keep track of our expenses. And remember the goal in doing that. The goal in doing that is to make certain that there's going to be a positive difference between what we spend, between what we make and what we spend. Like you want that difference, you know. And you want it to be positive. It can't be the other way, right? You're going into debt. You want to have extra. And the larger that difference is, then the happier that you and your family can be in the long run financially. So now just remember that when you increase your income, the pressure is going to be on you to go ahead and spend all of that extra money on just the basic needs of your life. And look, frankly, it's going to happen that you're going to move into a nicer house. I mean, you are also going to eat out more often. It's going to happen. And you're going to buy nice things, and you're going to be surprised at how fast your increased earnings are going to disappear. You'll be surprised. But even so, it's good to go ahead and experience a little bit of extra comfort gradually as your income increases. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The point that we're trying to make is that just remember, the goal is to have something left over, enough left over. It's got to be substantial enough to go ahead and contribute to the maturation of your economic situation. You want to mature and begin to get some assets, reduce your debts, increase your assets, so that your only source of financial power is not just simply your earnings. Yeah, when you're 20, 25, yeah, but hopefully by the time you're 35, you're going to have some assets behind you and you're going to be moving on. If you're 35 already or 50 already, that's okay too, because if you apply yourself, if you apply some of these principles, you can get some assets pretty quick. You can move forward and still mature from whatever level that you are. Okay, so we have discussed how you can consciously involve yourself in your career to increase your earnings. The second thing is to be involved with your spending, to be consciously involved. And you can't, like if you've got blinders on like that, you can't see, you can't be involved. So take notes, keep a list, keep a list and identify what you're spending your money on so you can control it. Okay, so this pretty much wraps up this video. It's pretty simple, I think. And hopefully if you've gained some insight from this, if it's motivated you in any way, then please take some time and view the further information that we're going to put out on future videos that follow.